Hi, I'm Kiki, and I am thicker than a bowl of oatmeal. So as I've done once before, I'm not identifying myself as an ally in this video because we're going to be discussing a topic that affects me directly, and that is body positivity and, I guess, conversely, body shaming. Now, at times in my life, I have been merely as thick as a bowl of oatmeal, or even occasionally cream of wheat. I probably shouldn't have extended this metaphor. But like probably every woman alive, and many not alive, I have struggled with body image for decades. Now, as always, I want to issue a disclaimer here that all of my opinions and personal experiences come from a place of privilege, and I will try to enumerate the ways that my privilege has protected me while I recount those personal experiences. Where to begin? I probably first became aware that the appearance of my body was something I should even care about when I was around 11 years old. And it started with my thighs. I was a dancer my whole life, and from a combination of that muscular development and genetics, I had really thick, shapely legs from a young age. Looking back, they were solid muscle and they didn't jiggle at all, but all I could really see then was that they were big, or bigger than my peers, and that they touched. No thigh gap in sight. I was 11 years old and 95 pounds soaking wet, and in the best physical condition I have ever or probably will ever be in, and I was obsessed with my thighs. From then on and through high school, I insisted on wearing Bermuda shorts that went to my knees because I was so insecure about them. Around the same time, I went through puberty, and with those hormonal changes came hips and boobs and that little pouch of fat women get below their belly button, and I became hyper aware that I was curvier than many of my friends. Again, looking back, I was still tiny, but I became uncomfortable in my own skin, and that feeling really never went away. As an adult, I try to think why I felt that way, or where those messages were coming from, that my thighs were too big or that I shouldn't have any fat on my stomach. So I wanted to share some personal reference points that really affected me and probably many other women and girls. Barbie. I played with Barbies from a very young age, and we all know now that her proportions would not be physically attainable in a human person, and she wouldn't even be able to hold up her own head. And I know a lot of people take issue with the idea that a doll can affect your self-esteem or your body image. But all little girls think that Barbie is beautiful, so all little girls want to grow up to look like Barbie, and we can't. The Little Mermaid. I have been obsessed with The Little Mermaid since before I can remember. And much like other Disney princesses, Ariel's waist is the same width as the distance between her eyes. Like this. The television show Friends, and the treatment of Fat Monica in particular. I still love Friends, but it hasn't aged well. Kate Hudson, Kate Bosworth, Kate Moss. Basically all the Kates. How Katherine Hahn was relegated to dumpy friend roles up until a couple years ago, most notably in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. So again, Kate Hudson. When Toni Collette was cast as the fat sister in Her Shoes. Bridget Jones's Diary. That's a skinny woman. The list goes on. I come from a long line of thick bitches who need tempo. So it was kind of alarming and frustrating for me to not see anyone who looked like the strong, beautiful women in my life represented in any TV or film. I don't at all mean to claim that this is an exclusively white problem, because it is obviously not. But I do think it's interesting to look at the differences between white and black communities when it comes to body positivity. I am ashamed to say that I consumed a lot of whitewashed media in my formative years, except for that time I saw Brown Sugar in theaters 3 times in a row because I was in love with Taye Diggs. But I'm so thankful that black girls of my generation had Queen Latifah in Living Single to look up to. Probably the only example of black girls having better representation than I did, but I digress. I came across an article recently on Bust entitled "The Racist Origins of Fatphobia." And before I even read it, the title gave me this aha moment because of course the two are related. I'm embarrassed to say that it had never occurred to me. So I'm linking to it below. It's actually a shorter piece by sociologist Sabrina Strings, who wrote an entire book on the subject, so I'll link to that as well. I'm gonna send you her way for this because there's no way I can articulate the ideas expressed in that article as well as she does, but I will say this. I've only really ever experienced body shaming or my body as any kind of issue in white spaces and with white men in particular. And I think that the article and the book help explain why that is. So back to the thing that I can speak confidently on, my personal experience. In high school, I was a dancer and I took class like 8 hours a week. And of course, I had a teenage metabolism, but I was still a size 8. I would kill to reach that size now, but in my predominantly white suburban high school, I was surrounded by size 0s and 2s. They were always decked out in Hollister and the dreaded Abercrombie and Fitch. And I just felt too big. Not to mention that this was at the height of the low-rise jean trend, in which I could not participate. Low-rise jeans are a crime against women. There, I said it. So I spent all of high school, college, and my 20s on and off diet after diet. I tried Atkins, the Suzanne Summers diet. I did this thing where you only eat cabbage soup for a week, and then the next week you can incorporate bananas and loose cold cuts with salsa and celery. And finally, most successfully and most recurringly, Weight Watchers. I've been on Weight Watchers a lot. In all that time, the smallest I ever achieved in my adult life was a size 10. And you can imagine what direction my size went with age. So that brings me to genetic predisposition and size as an unreliable indicator of health. As I mentioned, I come from a long line of THICCs, so it didn't come as much of a surprise that I would become one myself. And I don't mean to claim that I'm a pinnacle of health, but I do exercise and I pay attention to what I eat. The quarantine certainly has had me embrace carbs in a big way. Mindy Kaling said on Jimmy Kimmel once, "It takes a lot of effort to look like a normal/chubby woman." And I felt that pretty hard. I also resent the feeling that we need to explain ourselves. The queen of my heart, Lizzo, recently posted on Instagram with some clips from her workout routine. And she said, and I quote, "IDGAF about trolls who body shame me. I do this for those who get body shamed every single day, who don't have the platform or the path to confidence that I had." End quote. And she shouts out her trainer, who she says is really respectful of her goals and understands that she doesn't work out to attain a certain size or shape, but for her health. That girl belts and raps her songs, plays the flute, and twerks on stage. I promise her cardiovascular system is in shape. I know people love to concern troll plus size models and influencers by saying that they're just concerned about their health. But the truth is you can't know anything about a person's health just by looking at their body. Louder for the folks in the back. You can't know anything about a person's health just by looking at their body. I know plenty of very thin people who eat whatever they want and never exercise, and I can guarantee that Lizzo is healthier than them. But also, it's none of your business. When it comes to me personally, the worst body shaming that I have ever experienced in my life has come from myself, which I think is probably the same for most women who are not in the public eye. But when we see celebrities who are perhaps thinner than we are being body shamed, like Kate Winslet in Titanic, we feel targeted too. So I've talked a lot about the negative side of this coin, but what I really wanted to do was talk about my journey towards body positivity. I've read countless think pieces and blogs about body positivity, and I remember reading a bunch in my 20s, ripexojane.com, from plus-size women who were always a bit older than me, who had learned to accept and even love their bodies as they are. And at the time, I couldn't even imagine getting to a similar place or not spending every second of every day obsessing about my body. But I kind of did. And I hate to say it, but it's true that it does just come with age. There are all kinds of magical self-assurances that just arrive in your 30s. It was only in the last 2 or 3 years where I fell into the category of plus size, where I have to shop at a different section of the store or a different store entirely, which can be pretty demoralizing. But I am more comfortable in my skin now than I was in my early 20s 50 pounds ago. Because as time went on, I learned some truths about my body and all of the things that it's capable of and all of its limitations. One of those limitations being lower than a size 12. It's just not happening. In my 20s, I spent so much time and energy just imagining that if I lost 20 pounds, I could finally be happy or confident or desirable. And I self-sabotaged countless romantic opportunities because I just couldn't imagine that the guys that I was interested in could ever be interested in me because of my size. This was before I was even plus size. And I look back at those pictures now and I just want to shake that girl. And I regret not loving myself more because I was so cute. Lest I come off like I'm past that and now a paragon of body positivity, I have to admit that I still have that mental block about men. Now, I'm not saying that my body isn't a deal breaker for some, because I know it is, But I've never had a man actually say that to me. I have experienced some men who are clearly ashamed to be attracted to me or women like me, and oftentimes end up cheating or trying to cheat on their skinny girlfriends because publicly they want to be seen as successful with the right type of woman, but are denying their actual attractions. It makes me think of the movie Summer Catch, and Mark Blucas, who I always think is a Lachey, but isn't. His character likes bigger women, and he is being constantly made fun of by his teammates until he decides to just own it, which is still problematic because it borders on fetishizing, but I remember at the time thinking it was so groundbreaking. But one of the things that's such a bummer about that phenomenon is that it affects men too. Men see all the same TV shows and movies and fashion magazines that we do, and they're receiving the same messages about what kind of bodies are acceptable and what type of woman they're supposed to want, even if that's not really what they do. Attraction is a wide spectrum, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's also why curvy wife guy Robbie Tripp thinks he's like a hero for not being ashamed of his curvy wife, who is quite frankly better looking than he is. All that being said, I think we're making great strides as a society. More retailers are extending their sizes, and there are just more fashionable plus size options than there ever have been. And I'm so thrilled to live in a world where Ashley Graham exists and has the kind of success that she does. But at the lower end of the plus size spectrum, I have to acknowledge that I am still in a place of privilege. These fashion choices and representation in ad campaigns and runway shows kind of stops at a size 18 or maybe 20, so we still have a long way to go. So in that vein, I'm directing you to some resources and some body positive influencers and media, because I firmly believe that the more TV and film that you watch with body diversity, the more you can be deprogrammed to believe that only thin is beautiful. So I'm linking to the bust article I mentioned, The Racist Origins of Fat Phobia, and the book as well. I'm also sending you to Ashley Graham's Instagram because I just find it so inspiring and empowering every time I see her posts. Also, the comedian Nicole Byer has a really incredible Instagram, and she's got a book out called Very Fat, Very Brave that is just genius. I know we all know and love Aidy Bryant from SNL, but if you haven't watched her Hulu show Shrill, I highly recommend it. It does an amazing job of revealing those tiny microaggressions and insidious little ways that fat phobia seeps into our culture that you don't always see. I have read and reread both of Mindy Kaling's books countless times, and they're very funny and cover a wide range of topics, but she does talk a lot about being a curvy girl in a Hollywood world, and I find it really helpful. There's another plus size model that I've been following on Instagram. Her name is Diana Sirokai, and she is drop dead gorgeous, but a little bit larger than some of the plus size models that we've been seeing really amplified in media. So I highly encourage you to check her out, and perhaps others who are above a size 16. I also recently discovered a body positive influencer named Alex Light. She has a lot of really great posts about pop culture and media and the ways that it has programmed us to feel about ourselves and our bodies, and she's trying to help normalize things like cellulite or, fat on your stomach. I know she's kind of controversial, but Jamila Jamil founded this initiative called I Weigh, and their Instagram is really great because it focuses on all the things that add up to our worth that are more important than the size of our body or the number on a scale. And on my Instagram, I posted about the movie Dumplin' on Netflix. It's so good. I watch it like once a month. It does a really good job of approaching body positivity without being condescending and without sugarcoating things, but it's so feel good and delightful. Just go watch it. And it, of course, features Danielle McDonald, who is such a talent and embodies everything that the body positivity movement is all about. Also, I have a body positive Instagram. It's called The Curvy Sprite. I'm not that active on there, but I'm trying to be better about it. But I try to be really candid about my experiences of trying to learn to love myself in the body that I'm in. So if you want to check it out, The Curvy Sprite. And for the love of God, follow Lizzo on Instagram. You won't regret it. As always, get out there and spread love, and make like Mika and tell a big girl she is beautiful. I'll talk to you real soon.